Hi folks, I'm Dr. James Batson, and this is Straight Talk Medicine. Today we have with us our newest member of our chiropractic family at Kinnard Chiropractic, Dr. Christian Grouse. Welcome, Dr. Grouse.
I appreciate your time inviting me along there, Dr. Batson.
You're so welcome. Today we want to have a frank and open discussion with you about digestion and how it affects nutrition. And hopefully it'll be helpful information to you and something that you can use in your everyday life to improve your own health. And so, Dr. Christian, where does digestion start?
Well, I mean, digestion, it starts right away just in the mouth. Even within your saliva, you secrete certain enzymes which start breaking down various sugars. And with the idea being that food doesn't come necessarily already pre-packaged and broken down for your body to use right away. So the process of digestion starts right away, and getting these essential parts that you need ready for your body to start assimilating. So just even with the simple act of eating and chewing, you're starting to break down, whether it be protein or some type of starch or some type of fiber for your body to start assimilating.
Yeah, that's a good point. I suppose it may even start with smell.
Certainly at the Golden Corral it does.
Absolutely. Smell starts the body reacting to the fact that it may get food, just like Pavlov's dog started salivating, when they heard the bell.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think we've been pretty much attuned to the fact that, when we smell certain foods, we start salivating right away as well.
Quite so.
Preparing our bodies, again, to break down the food, just like you said. And chewing is certainly important. I mean, take time to chew your food. The smaller you break it down earlier on, the more effective your food is going to be. It's just simply a matter of physics, if you will, to break it down to where it's easily assimilated by the body. And of course, it does start with chewing.
Absolutely.
So healthy teeth.
And chew 30 times.
Chew 30 times.
Unless it's soft as ice cream, then you can just kind of slurp it up.
Sometimes I find myself wanting to get through really quick with my meal. Probably not a healthy thing.
You're probably watch Matlock or something. It must be like 7:55 and Matlock starts in 8 minutes.
I'm old enough to watch Jeopardy now. So it's 7
enough.
o'clock. Anyhow, when we chew our food properly and our salivary glands work to start breaking these foods down, and sometimes you can actually taste this occurring in your mouth. If you eat a piece of bread, it'll break down in your mouth into starches, which are sugars.
Sure.
And so the bread becomes more sweet as you leave it there.
Sure. And just to touch back upon the point of, there's already various enzymes, even within your saliva, they're called amylases, that do take apart those carbohydrates, these complex carbohydrates in the bread, to start to break it down to simpler and simpler blocks of sugars, which is what just a carbohydrate is. So once it starts to come to your stomach, once it starts to come to your small intestines, through your digestive tract, things can be taken care of, be uptaken by the body.
So that's a good experiment for our folks at home. Next time you eat bread, put it in your mouth, leave it there for a while. Don't just chew it quickly and swallow it. Maybe taste a little bit. As it turns to sugar, it'll become more and more sweet. So there we go. We've got food in our mouth. We've chewed it properly. We've allowed our glands to salivate the food and start to break it down in our mouth. Then we swallow it. Then what happens?
It takes a nap along the way. Oh, that's after the eating. Well, then of course it heads to our stomach. As it goes down our esophagus towards our stomach, that's just kind of the next stop on the food train there. In the stomach is essentially just a big bag that's lined with mucus that has secretory glands that secrete acid. It's often a question of, and maybe you've got this from other patients, but I always have a big confusion with patients of what a stomach actually does. A lot of people think a stomach is where the food is actually broken down and then absorbed by the body, but the stomach is it does two purposes. As the acid is secreted, it starts to kill off various bacteria that might be already on the food. Bacteria live in a very specific pH acidic range, as well as many types of chemical reactions, of which digestion is basically one big chemical reaction. You can think of your stomach as almost a giant beaker. it starts to get certain, especially as you start to look at proteins, certain protein reactions ready for the next step. So, yeah.
And the acid in your stomach is extremely strong.
Yeah.
Most people have no idea how strong that acid is, but it's stronger than battery acid. I don't know if you've ever had battery acid on you or not, but
I've kissed a 9-volt a couple times just
well,
for
there
the
you
shock.
go. Well, battery acid will eat through your clothes in just a little while.
Yeah.
You know, it's a very strong acid. I've dipped some steel products in acid. It doesn't take long to clean it. A matter of seconds.
I thought you were going to say you took some acid.
And so the acid, like Dr. Grouse just said, is also antibacterial. It will destroy the bacteria to a certain degree. Now, salmonella and things like this may slip by.
Sure.
But to the most part, the acid is not only there to break down the food, but is also there for protection as well, for the rest of the alimentary tract, which is the digestion tract.
I don't know, with the patients that you've dealt with and experienced in the past, I mean, you certainly have so much more experience in chiropractic than I do by about 25 years. But it certainly, something I've noticed that with certain patients I have that do have stomach problems or do have some type of reflux, I've had brilliant effects in adjusting the mid-dorsals, and to get some of these conditions to calm down. Yeah, I'm not sure what you've experienced in your 25 plus years, how common that is for you, but I've had, yeah, more times than not when I have those patients that come in with that constant GERD type symptom, some type of reflux, that it is stemming from these mid-dorsals, that T6, T7 area. And it just kind of to bring it into a chiropractic sense of how, I mean, it's the stomach is just another organ that is supplied by the nerves from your spine, from your brain. You can't escape the central nervous system, even when you're talking about digestion.
Yeah, and that's a great point, because the nervous system controls everything in your body. And if there's pressure on a nerve that goes to your stomach, then your stomach's either going to overwork or underwork. Depends on if there's an irritation of the nerve, then the stomach will secrete acid when there's no food there.
Yeah.
If there's significant pressure on the nerve that goes to the stomach, it may actually interfere and not allow the stomach to secrete enough acid to digest properly.
Yeah.
So either way, it can become an issue of not digesting your food properly. Can be from not chewing properly, not holding your food in your mouth long enough properly to get the salivary glands into the food. It may be a fact of, like you said, a chiropractic problem in your middle back, affecting the acid secretion into the stomach. Interesting stuff. Folks, we're going to be back in a minute. We're going to talk more about digestion on Straight Talk Medicine. Folks, welcome back to Straight Talk Medicine, sponsored by Kinnard Chiropractic. And today we have with us Dr. Christian Grouse, one of our newest members into the Kinnard Chiropractic family. And Dr. Grouse and I are just simply having an open discussion today about digestion. And we're hoping that you can take something from this and improve your overall health in a day-to-day basis. Dr. Grouse, we've talked about digestion starting with chewing, the salivary glands in your mouth breaking down the food. Now we've got the swallowing occurring, we've gone to the stomach, and we've talked about acid, how strong the acid is. The acid has a protection as far as keeping us from getting certain bacterial or viral infections that may actually be in the food that we've consumed. Sure. But also the stomach acid starts to break down what we've chewed.
Sure does.
It's very strong acid. And not to have enough of it is not a good thing, because then your food is not broken down properly and it can cause a lot of gassiness. Yeah. Patients that complain about a lot of gassiness, we talk to them about their digestion, the type of foods they eat, as well as what we're talking about here today. We go step by step through with them to try to determine the cause of the symptoms and not just give them an antacid or something to help them from being bloated. We try to find out, why are you that way?
Pork rinds and hot dogs.
And yoo-hoos.
Yeah, and yoo-hoos. It's something that, it's definitely difficult at times to communicate to patients. This is a multi-step process. There is no one part greater than the other. Everything kind of has to happen in a very distinct sequence for this process to occur as your body's designed. And unfortunately, you know, outside stresses, whether they be environmental stress, emotional stress, or as discussed earlier, some type of physical stress within your body, particularly your spine, can certainly impact this just one organ system in your body, your your yoo-hoo tract, your pork-rind tract, your digestive tract. So yeah, and really where this all heads to next, as we leave the stomach, we go into the small intestines, of which a couple different organs are all coming together to bring things to where, yeah, to the next step, to bring things into a little bit more packageable units for the body. So.
Good point. I mean, the stomach has to also hold the contents there long enough to effectively do its part as well. And there's things called sphincters at each end of the stomach. One to keep it from going back up into your throat, and there's one to keep it from emptying out too soon so the stomach acid can actually start to digest the food.
I appreciate your maturity with the word sphincter on this
show.
It
is, exactly. Matter of fact, the one that keeps it from going back up into your throat, I think is called a cardiac sphincter.
Exactly.
And it has nothing to do with your heart.
Nothing at all. It's just in terms of location of where it is relative to your stomach. The end has to be close to your heart, and your other one is called your pyloric sphincter. So.
Well, I figured the cardiac one was just a way to trick us when we were taking tests in school. Describe the cardiac sphincter and how it affects your heart or something.
I had a teacher I like to call sphincter.
There you go. So we've got digestion in the stomach there, and that's taking place. Now the stomach opens up its pyloric sphincter and starts to secrete the acid-rich foods into the small intestine. What occurs next? What other organs in our body that are next in line to start breaking down our food source?
Sure. We have a trio of liver, gallbladder, and pancreas. Now, these all, of course, depend on what type of foods you're eating. Some of these organs work more with a more fatty food. Some of them work more with pure proteins. And as we already talked with patients in the first segment, that you already have the breaking down of your carbohydrates just in your mouth, the amylase in your saliva. So it just, yes, each organ, each part has its own specific function of how it goes with the next step with the foods that you eat. So
absolutely. And the triad you talked about, the gallbladder, the liver, and the pancreas, breaking down carbohydrates, fats, proteins, sugars, which are carbohydrates, for those that don't know on television. And what happens if you have a gallbladder that goes bad?
Well, your gallbladder is just a little sac. It happens to store bile, and bile is used to break down fats in particular. You take the fats and start to break it down into smaller lipids that the body can use to transport later on down the line in the digestive tract. Your gallbladder can form stones as some of these bile salts become too concentrated. They can precipitate into little crystals. These, I don't know if I'm back in an anatomy lab, I saw one lady that looked like they had corn nuts in her bile. It was it just one of those things that you'll never forget as you close your eyes and seeing these little chunks. And I mean, and when I say little, they were not so little, they were appropriate, but it can go in and block off that gallbladder as that duct comes around and then joins up with the small intestines. And so you're not really being able to break down your fats properly.
Yeah, and again, that can lead to improper digestion.
Exactly.
And improper digestion can lead to malnutrition.
Sure.
No matter how good your nutrition is, if you're not reabsorbing vitamins and minerals and salts and essential things that your body needs from your intestinal tract, you will become malnourished with time. That's why it's important to learn about digestion. But yeah, your gallbladder, when it goes bad, if anybody has ever experienced that, it's very painful. And it can cause you to actually throw your food up practically almost every time you eat.
And it's, in terms of symptomatology also, it's something that you'll notice kind of on the other end as the food gets processed, you're not breaking down the fats. You do get a fattier stool, and that's usually a very kind of part and parcel symptom of when the gallbladder, liver, the gallbladder lives on top of the liver, actually on the underside. And when those two units aren't functioning properly, it gives you that symptomatology of having that fatty stool. So it's always something, Eileen, as our observers watch at home, and they'll have something else to watch later after their cup of coffee and bran muffin.
And the pancreas.
And the pancreas.
That's where people either become diabetic or their body handles their sugar like it should.
Yeah.
So there's little cells inside the pancreas, which is also near your stomach, that if it's working properly, when you consume a lot of sugars or starches, it secretes insulin.
Yep.
Brings the blood sugar, tries to keep it level.
Yeah.
Doesn't let it get too high, not too low, kind of level.
Yeah, no, the pancreas is definitely, of my top 3 organs in the body, the pancreas is one of my favorite. It does so many different things. We did touch on blood sugar with it, but also has a very important role with proteins. And certainly I'll dive into a little bit more of that and after the break. But it's, yeah, keep the pancreas in mind. It's